Chapter 15. Wu Mansion, Singapore. Yes, I see, please, the security guard said sternly as Astrid rolled down the window of her car. Astrid dug into her perch for her wallet, took out her Singapore identity card and handed it to the guard. He held the card up to his eye level to compare the semi-pixelated photograph to her face, squinting at every data. It was a bad hair day, Astrid joked. The guard didn't crack a joke, but took her IC into the guardhouse and began to scan it through the computer system. Astrid had to resist rolling her eyes. This particular Mandarin Chinese guard already knew her. How many times had she been here in the past few months? It made her understand how the Wus came to be developed a particular reputation among Singapore's establishment when Charlie's father, Wu Haolian, first made his fortune in the early 1980s. The Wus did seem pretentious. There was no avoiding the fact. At a time when the moneyed crowd preferred to populate elegant bungalows tucked away in the leafy enclaves of District 9, 10 and 11, Wu Ho-lian had bought a large parcel of land off one of Singapore's busiest thoroughfares and built a sprawling family compound right there for all the world to see. He had erected a tall white stucco wall around the property, and at the top of the wall, sharp red glazed tiles undulated up and down like the scaly curves on a dragon's back, ended up at the main gate with twin carved dragon heads in bronze. Rectangle gold plaques placed in niche at 30-foot intervals around the wall were engraved in an ornate calligraphy script with the words Wu Mansion. To ordinary Singaporeans, the 90% who lived in public housing apartment, it seemed like the Wus were the richest family in the land. The family was seen being driven around in the fleet of ever-changing Rolls Royce, always accompanied by security guards in a Mercedes wherever they went. They were one of the first families on the island to flaunt their private jet and spent all their holidays touring Europe, where Irene Wu and her daughters developed a voracious appetite for haute couture and haute jewellery. Whenever Irene appeared in public, she was always clad in the most ornate, festooned frocks and laden with so much jewelry that all the other socialites nicknamed her Christmas tree behind her back. But all this was so long ago, Astrid thought, as the tall steel gate, embossed with the ornate W seal, began to slide to one side, and she sped up the short driveway to the Palladian-style house with a white column portico covered in bougainvillea. The Wus had receded into the background, especially after Charlie's father passed away, and a new generation of brash billionaires burst into the scene in the early 2000s, building even more ostentatious pleasure domes and vying for visibility in the society pages. Only Charlie's mother remained in Singapore these days, reluctant to give up her house. Astrid pulled up behind a grey Mercedes SUV already parked underneath the portico. She saw Lincoln Tay, her distant cousin, emerge from the driver's seat and walk around the trunk of the car. "I talk. Fancy seeing you here," Astrid said as she got out of the car. "What can I tell you? You're always hanging around the rich and famous, and I just work for them," he joked. "Now, Astrid, tell me, why are you still driving that old Acura? Does it even pass inspection anymore? This is the most reliable car I've ever owned. I'm going to drive it until I'm forced to scrap it." "Come on now, you are so loaded. At the very least, you could upgrade to the ILX, or maybe Charlie can buy Acura, the company, for you and have them design you a car from scratch." "Ha ha, very funny," Astrid said. It occurred to her that every time she saw that distant cousin, he would make some sort of reference to her money. "Hey, come and see something very special," Atok said as he opened the trunk of the SUV. A large igloo cooler was strapped to one side of the spacious rear, and Atok carefully lifted out a large plastic bag that had been inflated with oxygen. Inside was a dragon-like fish, about 2 feet in length. "Oh, it's an arowana," Astrid said. "Not just any arowana. This is Valentina and Mrs. Wu's prized super red arowana. It's worth at least 175,000 now. It will be worth 250,000 minimum. Why is that? I just took Valentino to his plastic surgeon. He was beginning to develop droopy eyes, so we gave him an eyelid, and he even got very slight chin job. See how handsome he looks now? There's a plastic surgeon for fish?" Astrid asked incredulously. "The best in the world right here in Singapore. He specialises in arowanas." Before Astrid could properly soak in the fabulous bit of trivia, the front door opened and Irene Wu came running out. A round-faced woman in her early 70s, she was dressed in a bright orange Moroccan-style tunic top embroidered with tiny mirrored glass pieces and sequins, white capri pants and fluffy white bedroom slippers embroidered with the Four Seasons Hotel logo. On her finger sparkled an emerald ring. Another ring consisted of 3 interlaced bands of diamonds set in white, yellow, and rose gold, and a pear-cut diamond ring that was nearly as big as the real fruit itself. How is he? How's my baby Valentino? Irene asked breathlessly, rushing towards Atok and the plastic bag. Mrs. Wu, he's doing very well. The surgery was a success, but he's still a bit sluggish at the moment from being drugged. Let's get him acclimated back into his tank. Ah, yes, Arya. Astrid, I didn't even see you. Come in. Sorry, I am so conundrum today because of Valentina's procedures. My goodness, don't you look lovely? Who are you wearing today? Irene asked, admiring Astrid's floral kimono-inspired wrap dress. Oh, this is a dress that Romeo Gigolo made for me years ago, Auntie Irene, Astrid said, leaning to give her a peck on the cheek. Of course it is so pretty, and don't you think it's high time you started calling me Mama instead of Auntie Irene? Come on, Mum, lay off, Astrid, Charlie said, standing at the front of the door. Astrid beamed at the sight of them and rushed up the stairs to give him a tight hug. I'm going to tear up and ruin my mascara. Look at my 2 lovebirds, Irene sighed happily. As the group entered the house, Charlie steered Astrid towards the sweeping, Gone-with-the-Wind-style double staircase instead of the living room. Where are you 2 going? Irene asked. I'm just taking her upstairs for a little while, Mum, Charlie said in a slightly exasperated tone. But Gracie has spent all day making so many types of nyongkwa. You must come and have tea and nyongkwa with me in a little while, okay? Of course we will, Astrid said. As they climbed the stairs, Charlie said in a low tone, my mum is getting more and more needy every time I see her. She just misses you. It must just get lonely for her that none of you are in Singapore. She's surrounded all day by the staff of 20. It's not the same, and you know it. Well, she has a house in Hong Kong. She could spend all her time there if she wants, but she insists on staying here, Charlie argued. This is where most of her memories are, just like yours, Astrid said as she entered Charlie's bedroom. The space had been redecorated several years ago in cool masculine tones with shagreen-covered walls and custom-designed contemporary wood furnishing from BDDW in New York, but Charlie had kept one reminder of his childhood in the bedroom. The entire ceiling had been installed with a mechanic-sized mural depiction of the constellation in the sky, and as a kid Charlie would go to sleep every night staring at the glowing ceiling of the stars as they rotated daily according to the zodiac. Today he wasted no time in pulling Astrid into the bed and smothering her with kisses. You have no idea how much I've missed you, Charlie said, kissing her tender area right above her collarbone. Me too, Astrid sighed as she put her arms around him, feeling the ripple of muscles down his back. After spending some time making out, they lay entwined in each other's arms, staring up at the sparkling night sky together. I feel like a teenager again, Astrid giggled. Remember how you used to sneak me up here after NYF on Saturdays? Yeah, I still feel like I'm doing something naughty having you in here right now. The door's wide open, Charlie. We hadn't done anything R-rated, Astrid said with a laugh. I'm so happy to see you in such a good mood, Charlie said, running his fingers through her hair. I feel like the storm's one lifted. You have no idea how amazing it felt to be in the breakfast room yesterday when my grandmother came downstairs. I can only imagine. She made everyone look at my engagement ring. It's like she was daring the rest of the family to challenge us. Your grandmother is one cool lady. I'm looking forward to seeing her tonight. She invited my mum too, you know. Really? Astrid looked at him in surprise. Yeah. An engraved invitation was delivered this morning. My mother could hardly believe it. She never thought the day would come that she would be invited to Tysdale Park. I think she is going to frame the card. Well, it's going to be quite a party. I can't wait to see the look on certain faces when I walk into the room with your mother. Which ones? Oh, you know, 1 or 2 of my aunties. Us nodded, then others. And there's one cousin in particular who's going to lose his shit. Rico Soir, the best dressed man in Hong Kong, Charlie teased. Best dressed Hall of Fame, he'll tell you. Astrid laughed. Come on, let's go back downstairs before your mother thinks we're doing something nasty up here. I want her to think I'm doing something nasty. They got out of bed reluctantly, straightened her clothes, and strolled down the gracious, curving stairway hand in hand, passing through the archway underneath the staircase that entered the grand living room, which was handsomely decorated in French Empire style, intermingled with intermingled with museum-quality Chinese antiques. In the middle of the cavernous space was a large free-form pond with a grove of tropical trees grew out of the water, reaching almost to the top of the glass dome cupola. Big Koi swam in the gurgling pond, but the focal point of the living room was the main wall, which featured a 200-gallon fish tank painted pitch black that was recessed into the wall. Valentino looked happy to be home, Charlie said, excited as the two of them went up to look at him. Inside the tank, Irene's precious super red arowana undulated happily all alone, the pink fiber optic light making his body glow an even brighter iridescent red. Asher looked down at the coffee table, which was groaning with a colourful array of Nyong dessert cakes on navy and gold rimmed limos plates. Coeur lapis, my favourite, Charlie said, plopping down on the plush gold brocade sofa and picking up one of the buttery pieces of cake with his fingers. Don't you think we should wait for your mum? Oh, she'll be out in a minute. I'm sure. Let's get started. You don't ever have to stand on ceremony here. You know how down to earth my mother is. Astrid began to pour tea into Charlie's cup from the silver tea service. That's what I've always loved about your mother. She doesn't put on any airs. She's such a warm and simple lady. Yeah, tell that to the folks at Bulgari. Charlie snorted as Artok entered the living room. Lincoln, are you going to join us for some tea? Where's Mum? She's in the bedroom. She wants to lie down. Lincoln said as she fidgeted with the cell phone. Why is she lying down? Charlie said. Astrid looked at her from across the street. Is she not feeling well? No. Artok stood there with a funny look on his face. Astrid, I think you better call home. Why? Your grandma just passed away. Part 3. The Man Who Dies Rich Dies Disgraced. Andrew Carnegie, 1889. Chapter 1. Terrestrial Park, Singapore. Madry, lady's maid to Su Yi since 1999. Madame usually has a bowl of congee in the morning, sometimes with a fresh raw egg cracked in the steaming hot congee, sometimes with just a few ikan bilis. Today she asked for Hokkien mami, which was a highly unusual request for breakfast. The noodle Ching prepares for her are done in a very specific way, using a hand-pulled flat yellow noodle, which she likes stir-fried in thick oyster sauce gravy with a dash of brandy. For lunch, Madame just wanted to bring her some fresh starfruit and guavas from her tree. She asked for the whole fruit. She didn't want them sliced or anything, and sat in her bed staring at her fruits and holding them in her hands and not eating anything. That's the moment I realized that something was terribly wrong. Philip Young, only son. I saw Mummy after breakfast for the first time in as long as I can remember. She wanted to know how I spent my days in Sydney. I told her about how I drive down to one of my favourite cafes in Rose Bay every morning for my flat white, and then there are always errands to run, something in the house that needs fixing, or I'll have lunch in the city at one of my clubs or play a round of tennis with a friend. In the late afternoons, I like to sit at the end of my dock and do a spot of fishing. That's when the fish are always biting. For dinner, I often eat whatever I've caught. Mickey, our chef, will always do something terrific with the fish, grilled and served with a risotto made into a tartare or steamed Chinese style with rice or noodles. Sometimes I'll just go down to the local and have a pub dinner. Mummy shook her head in a mixture of sadness and disbelief. The thought of me sitting in a pub eating a burger by myself like a common labourer is too much for her to fathom. But I love eating very simply when Eleanor is around. If she's in town, Eleanor keeps Mickey very busy cooking 12 to 14 courses for her dinners. Then Mummy said something rather surprising. She asked me if I had forgiven Eleanor. I was a bit shocked for a moment. In all these years, Mummy had never brought it up. I told her that I had forgiven my wife a very long time ago. Mummy seemed happy about this. She looked at me for a long time and said, "You are just like your father after all." I told her I was going to meet up with a few of my ACS old boys for a drink at the men's bar in the cricket club, but I would be back before our dinner guests arrived. As I left her bedroom, there was a part of me that sensed she didn't want me to leave. I wondered for a moment if I should cancel the meet-up and stand by her bedside, but then I thought, Philip, you're being ridiculous. You'll be back in 2 hours. Li Ling, head housekeeper. At around 4:30 p.m., I went upstairs to give CE a final update on tonight's menu for the party. When I went into the bedroom, Catherine was sitting by her bedside. I noticed someone had opened all the windows and curtains. Suyi usually prefers the curtains drawn in the afternoon to protect the antique furniture from setting sun, so I began to close them. "Leave them," Catherine said. I looked over at her and began to ask why, and that's when I realized that Suyi was gone. You could just see that her spirit had left her body. I was so shocked. I panicked at first and asked, "Where are the doctors? Why didn't the alarms go off?" "They did. The doctors came in and I sent them all away," Catherine said in an unnatural calm voice. "I wanted to be alone with my mother one last time." Professor On, Professor Personal Cardiologist. I had been entertaining Deborah Aronson, the publisher of the Poseidon books, at home in my wine cellar when the call came. You see, I collect contemporary Chinese art, and Poseidon had been trying to woo me into doing a coffee table book on my collection. When my associate, Dr. Chia, called with the urgent news from Tysdale Park, I merely said, "Do not resuscitate." I knew it would be hopeless. There'd been so much scarring to the heart, it would be pointless to try and revive it. "It's her time to go." None of this came as a surprise to me. In fact, after looking at her stats the previous morning during that fabulous crate breakfast, I was surprised that she was even able to get out of bed. Her heart rate, her blood pressure, her ejection fraction, everything was off the charts. But I've seen this happen time and time again. In the day or two before a patient passes, they can experience a sudden spurt of energy. The body rallies as if it knows that this will be the last hurrah. The minute I saw you at the breakfast table, I surmised that this was happening. After all this time, with all the medical advances we've made, the human body is still an unfathomably mystery to us, the heart most of all. Alexandra Young Cheng, youngest daughter. I was in the library with Fiona and Callis, showing Callis my Enid Blyton first editions when the dog started howling. It must have been about 3:30 in the afternoon. It wasn't just our pack of Alaskans that patrolled the grounds, but it seemed like every dog within a 2-mile radius was making restless, high-pitched yelps. I gave Fiona a look, and she knew exactly what I was thinking. She left the library without a word and went upstairs to check on Mummy. By now the howling had stopped, but I remember feeling enveloped by a sense of dread. My heart was beating a mile a minute, and I kept staring at the door. I was somehow willing Fiona to not come back through the doors. I didn't want to hear any bad news. I was trying to focus on Callis, who wanted to know if she could have the entire Mallory Tower series. They were her favourite too when she was younger. Then Fiona came back in and I just froze until she met Oswell. "Auntie Cat is with her," she whispered to me. I was so relieved that we went back to the stacks. After an hour later, Arlene came rushing into the library to tell me to get upstairs. The look on her face told me everything. You see, the dogs knew all along. They just could sense it coming. Cassandra Shang, niece. I was in bed at Harlinson Court, reading the latest Julie Cooper novel when my phone rang to vibrate on silent mode. When my phone began to vibrate on silent mode, I recognized the number immediately. It was Deep Throat, my spy at Tysdale Park. Of course, I had it inside source of the house. It would be so foolish of me not to. At first, Deep Throat simply said, "Bo Lao." I said, "What do you mean, Bo Lao?" Deep Throat was overly excited, but she managed to get out. "See, you just died. Big fight upstairs right now. I must go." So, of course, the first thing I did was call my father. I said, "Are you at Tysdale Park?" He said, "No." I think I caught him at his mistress' apartment. He was very out of breath. So I said, "You better head over now. Something just happened to your sister." Lincoln, our Toktai, distant cousin. Great Uncle Ahret called me. I think he was on his way to Tysdale Park. He said to tell everyone on my side of the family that CE had just passed, but he didn't want any of us at the house tonight. "Tell your father to stay home, and I'll let you all know when to come. Tonight's is just for family, and if we're not part of the family, fucking bastard." As if we're not part of the family, fucking bastard. Then he said, "Better start ordering the tents and folding chairs. We're going to need lots of them." I was still at Irene's, who was trying to acclimate the damn fish back into the tank. So I told her the news, and she started to lose it. "I know, Alamo, how to face Astrid," she cried. Fleeing to her bedroom, I went back into the living room, and when I saw Astrid sitting there pouring tea like Princess Diana, I realized the spoiled bitch didn't have a clue that her grandma had just hit the bucket. I had to be there to tell her. Of course, she was in total shock, but I don't feel sorry for her one bit. She's now instantly a million times richer than she already is. Victoria Young's her daughter. The first thing that came to my mind when I saw her lying there was Eddie crying over her body hysterically was, "Thank you, Jesus, thank you, Jesus, thank you, Jesus. She has been released, and so have I. I'm free at last, finally free." I numbly put my hand on Alex's back and tried to rub it soothingly while she stood looking at Mummy. I thought I might cry, but I didn't. I looked over at Kat, who was sitting in the armchair still holding Mummy's hand, and she wasn't crying either. She was staring out the window with a rather odd look on her face. I suppose we must have all rather looked odd that day. I started to consider the curtains. Mummy's curtain was with the point lace trim, and I began to imagine how they would look in the front windows of the townhouse I would buy in London. I could really see myself moving to one of those lovely townhouses in Kensington, perhaps on Edgerton Crescent or the Low Square, just a throne's throw from the Victoria and Albert. I could I would use the V&A Glorious Library every day and go for afternoon tea at the Capitol Hotel or the Goring. I'll attend All Souls Church every Sunday and maybe even start my own Bible study fellowship. I could endow a chair in the theology at Trinity College, Oxford. Maybe I could even convert an old rectory in some charming town in Cotswold, some place with a particularly smart and handsome clergyman, like that Sydney Chambers in Grantchester. Goodness me, one look at him in the stiff clerical collar and I go weak in the knees. Mrs. Lee Yong Chien, Chairman Emeritus of the Lee Philanthropic Foundation. Sue Yee's Mahjong Kaki. I was at my Friday afternoon Mahjong game at Istana with the First Lady Felicity Leong and Daisy Fu when Felicity got the call. She didn't say anything to us at first. She just started rummaging through her Lorna handbag, saying she needed to find her blood pressure pills. Only after she had swallowed pills did she say, "Ladies, I'm terribly sorry to leave like this in the middle of a game, but I must go. My mother has just passed." My goodness, the First Lady became so overcome. I thought she was going to faint right there in the table. After Felicity left, the First Lady said should go upstairs to the office to see the President, the news, and Daisy said, "Alamak, I should call Eleanor." She didn't call me, so I bet you she didn't. She doesn't even know. When the ladies all returned, we decided to toast Suyi. After all, she was a Mahjong maven par excellence. We all knew better never to bet serious money when Suyi was at the table. Now that she's left us, my account won't feel the loss, but I know her family will. Suyi was the glue that held them all together. Those children of hers are a disgrace. Philip is a simpleton. Alex is a useless Hong Kong Tai. Victoria's a spinster and the one that married the Thai prince. I never really knew her, but I always heard she was very stuck up like most Thais I met. They think just because they've never been invaded, they're the best. Only Felicity had any sense because she was the eldest, but all those grandchildren are also good for nothing. This is what happens when too much money falls on people who are too attractive. That Astrid's so pretty, but her only talent is spending more than the GDP of Cambodia on her clothes. Look at my grandsons. 4 of them are doctors, 3 are lawyers, 1 is the youngest judge ever to be appointed to the Court of Appeal, and 1 in an award-winning architect. Let's not mention the grandson living in Toronto who is a hairdresser. So sad for Suyi, who can't brag about any of her descendants. Just you watch, everything's going to go down the toilet now. Nicholas Young, grandson. I had only just arrived at Tyersall Park and was unpacking my suitcases when I heard the commotion outside my bedroom. Maids were running down the corridor everywhere like a fire alarm had gone off. "What's going on?" I asked. "You are Ma," one of them shouted frantically as she passed me. I immediately ran up the back stairs to Alma's bedroom. When I got there, I couldn't see anything. There was too many people blocking the way and someone was wailing uncontrollably. Victoria, Alex, Adam and Pia were hovering around the bed while Uncle Taxon was embracing Auntie Kat, who was still sitting in an armchair beside Alma. Arlene was closest to me by the door and she turned towards me, her face swollen with tears. As Adina and Pia moved aside to make room for me, I could see that Eddie was lying in bed with Alma, holding her body, shaking violently as he whimpered like a tortured animal. He caught my eye suddenly. He leapt out of bed and started screaming, "You killed her! You killed her!" Before I knew what was happening, he's on top of me and we're both on the ground. Her Serene Highness, Mom Rajawa Pirara Akara, granddaughter-in-law. Well, what an odd family I've married into. Adam's aunties are like characters straight out of a Merchant Ivory film. They go rattling around the huge palace dressed like underpaid civil servants, but then they start speaking and they all sound like Maggie Smith. Auntie Felicity chucks about like a mother hen, criticizing everyone, while Auntie Victoria seems to be an expert in everything, even though she hasn't worked a day in her life. She even tried to challenge me on the origin of the Hata virus. Then the other Hong Kong cousins, Alistair Cheng, who is very sweet, but how do I put it politely, not even the sharpest tool in the box, and his sister Cecilia and Fiona Tung Cheng, both perfectly polite, but so stuck up. Why do all Hong Kong girls think the sun shines out of their ass? They just chatter away to each other occasionally and go off on foodie adventures every day with their kids. I suspect they only came to Singapore to eat. Every time they are around, I feel like they are assessing me from head to toe. I don't think Cecilia approves of Balmain. And then there's Eddie. What a crazy fuck. Grandma had just died and all her daughters stand there staring at her body without a single tear in their eyes. The only people who seem to be crying are the maids, the silk guards, and Eddie. OMFG, I have never seen a grown man sob like that, crawling to bed clothing his dead mother, dressed in a velvet smoking jacket. And then Nick, the only halfway normal person in the whole house, enters the room. Eddie lunges at him. The auntie starts to scream, but really, it's a pretty pathetic fight because Eddie hits like a girl and Nicky simply rolls off him and pins him to the ground. Calm the fuck down, Nick says, but Eddie's screaming, kicking, thrusting, and finally Nick has no choice but to sock him right in the nose, and blood just goes everywhere, especially all over brand new Rick Owens toad skin boots. And now I'm told we have to spend at least another week with these people. Kill me now. Captain Vikram, head of security, tries to park. Arlene caught me in a panic. Hey, come quick, they are fighting. Eddie is trying to kill Nicky. I rushed upstairs with 2 Gurkhas, but by the time I got to the room, it was all over. Eddie was sitting at the foot of the bed, blood all over his face. He kept saying, "You broke my nose. You're going to fucking pay for my nose job." Nicky just stood there, looking stunned. Alex smiled at me as if nothing had happened and said in the calmest voice ever, "Hey, Vikram, you're here. I'm not sure what the procedure is. Who do we call? Do we call the police now?" I was confused at first and said, "You want to report this fight?" She said, "Oh no, not that. My mother has passed away. What are we supposed to do now?" In all the confusion, I hadn't even noticed that Mrs. Young was dead. I couldn't help myself. I burst into tears right then in front of everyone. Felicity Leong, eldest daughter. No matter how old you are, no matter how ready you think you are, nothing quite prepares you for the loss of a parent. My father passed away years ago, and I still haven't quite recovered. People have been saying to me all week long, "At least your mother lived to the ripe old age, and you got to spend all those years with her." And I just want to spit on their face. I want to scream at them, "Shut up, all of you. My mother died. Please don't tell me how lucky or fortunate I am that she lived this long. She had been here on this earth in my entire life, and now suddenly, in the blink of an eye, she's gone, gone, gone. And I'm an orphan now, and even though she was a difficult woman, even though she drove me crazy half the time, and I was never quite good enough for her exacting standards, my heart is broken. I will miss her every day and every hour for the rest of my life. My only regret was that I wasn't there when her and the moment of her passing. Kat was the only one in the room with her, and I kept asking her what happened, but Kat seemed too distraught to speak. She won't tell me a thing." A small, discreet, one-column death was published in the obituary section of the Straits Times. Shang Shu-Yi, Mrs. James Young, 1919 to 2015, beloved wife and mother. Son Philip Young, daughters Felicity Young, Catherine Young, Victoria Young, Alexandra Young, sons-in-law Taisri Henry Leong, MC Taksin Akara, Dr. Malcolm Cheng, daughter-in-law Eleanor Sung, grandchildren and their spouses. Henry Leong, Dr. Peter Leong, Alexander Leong, Astrid Leong, Emma James Akara, Emma Matthew Akara, Emma Adam Akara, Nicholas Young, Edison Chung, Cecilia Chung, Alistair Chung. Great-grandchildren, Henry Leong, James Leong, Philip Leong, Anwar Leong, Yasmin Leong, Constantine Cheng, Calais Augustine, Jake Moncur, Cassian Teo, brother, Alfred Shane. Visitations begin tonight at Taswell Park by invitation only. Funeral at St Andrew's Cathedral Saturday at 2 p.m. by invitation only. No vows, please. Donations may be made to the St John's Ambulance Association. Thanks for listening.